Well, hello, hello. Well, Friday afternoon, little free time here before the weekend. Thought I would just go live, chat a little baseball. It's been a few days since I've been connected online, and we've got I guess, a reboot of the Howie Shanks Bingo Draft League concept that we all got involved in. Since then, I've been able to set up a dedicated Discord server just to focus on that league, called it the Baseball Geek Squad, a name inspired partially by my wife. So going to go with that and maybe just focus around this league and any discussions we have around it, drafting in its own server here at Discord. So that'll be interesting to see. It's my first venture into kind of hosting a Discord server, so we'll see how that goes. But see if anybody wants to come on today and talk about getting this league off and running officially, which it looks like next Tuesday night will be the official draft night, which gives us a whole weekend and an extra day or so to prep for it. So I had some thoughts about some of the work we can do ahead of time to, I guess, make best use of our time when we get on the clock with our random generated assignments. And I know I didn't get a chance the other day to participate in some of the, I guess, the examples or the trials that everybody ran through to test out, like having us all go on the clock for each round at the same time and draft. So maybe we can discuss that here today and talk anything else baseball. Nice to have a little free time to devote to the hobby I like here, to be a nice distraction from normal life. See who else is out there today. And I may just fire up a couple extra ballparks here that I've been looking at. And let me do one of that, see if anybody's interested. I had a Yare Park in Montreal for the Expos that I had been working on as far as a visual image of what that park might look like. So I've got a few of those that I've been playing around with. And my thought is, what am I going to do to help prep myself for this draft so that I can, if I'm fired off with a year of, let's say, 1921, I kind of already know if I get that year who my main targets might be. ¿Qué tal? Hola, MV, bringing the Espanol into the chat today. It's a great day, MV. Glad to see you here. And I just thought, hey, what the heck? Maybe we could just start chatting up what would be fun with this draft that we have coming up. I know some of you got a chance to experiment with this new format we're going to use where we all get our dedicated years and boom, we get like the green light and we go, and we've got our dedicated time to research, and just going to get my head wrapped around that and maybe talk about how we could all put in some research time between now and next Tuesday for the draft so that we feel like we're coming in prepared. And then anything else that interests anybody. I thought, hey, do we want to look at anything within the game? Kind of like a free for all Friday here. Um, I've got a couple other park images I was messing around with the other day that I thought, I don't have a good image for this one. Can I find one and run it through my gigapixel enhancer, things like that. So yeah, it has been a while. This is a step back in time. Yeah, and you know what I thought for fun, while we're killing some time today, MV, should I just start? Should I hit go and let we're at that starting point where we were, where Beatles said go, right? I think mine is a game or two even ahead of where his was. Should I hit go and see what my rendition of this league would have turned into? Maybe we could do that here while we chat. Yep. Cool. We'll do that. Let's do it. Let's say while I'm filling the time with chatter here. Let's go to scheduled game. And this is the right BBX. It was just missing my game here. I was down 0 games to 2. So let's hit play all games. And away we go. Let's see what happens while we start monitoring this. But I think this is the inspiration for what we're about to embark on, which is the official version of the redo 2.0. I don't know what we call this. The sequel, the next chapter. I don't know what we're going to label it, but I'm looking forward to it. And I think, MV, it was you that was credited with the unique approach of let's everybody get the years assigned and then we all go at the same time, and that we could run through rounds a lot quicker. So I'm getting my head wrapped around that. And I thought, well, if we've got till next Tuesday, which I think is great. Oh yeah, we'll do that, MV. Let's look at manager preferences and dig through that. I agree, because I think for us to really get the enjoyment of feeling like, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to consider us more of owners, where if we can get the manager files down to be the manager we want, it would be like if we're an owner and we hire a manager of a certain style and expect them to manage away. That's kind of how I view this league, right? Versus being in the dugout, calling pitch outs and things like that. There may be an opportunity, I think, in certain broadcasts, if I still understand it, where the situation may lend itself to a couple people being there and maybe a little bit of human involvement more than normal. But I think for the most part, if we plan for how we can all feel comfortable with setting lineups and options, and what boxes need to be checked or unchecked, if we can get some consistency there, we can really set up these manager files to be a better representation of how our styles would be. I figured you would, MV, only because I think I said it before. If no one has ever been the live broadcaster caught in the middle of two people trying to human control their team, you just probably don't completely understand the situation you can be put into. It's hard to explain. So what do we got going? Let's take a look at our standings. Let's take a look at the leaders. We're still getting highlights here as we start plugging along here. Oh, there's Ichiro Suzuki, who what I've noticed in that league that we had running is always up there in batting typically. We're in May right now, the beginning of May. Let's see. Oh, look, we've got Cleveland. Oh, I'm in third place. Oh, I've just bumped you out of second there, MV. Cleveland, Detroit, and Manchester slugging it out. Salt Lake is right there in the mix. Wow, it looks like a real four-person race right here in May in the bingo division. That looks pretty nice there. Looking good, looking good. And MV, I don't know if you're available to chat, but if you want, if you can give me a thumbs up if you're open for it, I'd love to ping you on Discord and get you voiced in on Discord here for this broadcast. You could always just mute the YouTube sound that you're watching if you're willing to come on and chat with me. I don't know if what your technology setup is there in West Virginia or anything, but if you're open to that, I can definitely ping you for a chat. Yeah, do what he says. I love it. Okay. I got to figure out how to do it. There's always got to be an easy way. Yeah, call MV. Yeah, I'm ready to start the call. And here comes the call to MV.
Hey, Steve.
MV, you sound professional, meaning the equipment you're using immediately.
I bought a new microphone. Let's see, about 2 weeks ago, and I was even invited to the Beatles channel the other night. So I've been able to get a better sound now. I'm glad you can recognize it as well. So I've got a bit of a sore throat though, so my voice might
No,
sound a
it's
bit
fine.
deep.
We'll see if we can make it more sore by getting you to talk here today. But I appreciate you hopping on.
Well, first things first, I have noticed the red bolts in this sim we're doing now are performing much better than when Beatles did it. I think because Beatles use an older BBX than the real one, which is this one, I had made an adjustment to my preferred settings. I was
Yeah,
tinkering with it. Yeah.
yeah.
And what would be really good, because you're the expert in terms of depth charts and I was playing around with that and I noticed some things which, again, I'd run past you and say, first of all, I've just lost to Mudville. I can't believe that. Anyway, um,
Yes.
like, how can we lose to Mudville? Anyway, uh, if we could go through that, that would be really cool because I think that's the source of so much debate is the AI management preferences going to live up to what people expect? And what
Right.
I did say on the Beatles broadcast, I think it was a couple of days ago, was this game is so intricate, so deep. I don't think most of us realized
No.
how good it is at actually capturing what we want as long as we put in the right stuff.
And you bring a good point. It's like I try not to sound like I'm a shill for the company, right? Because but this year I did I was a beta tester and I did that
Yeah.
unboxing. Okay. I'd never done anything like that. That forced me, being a beta tester, to dig into features that I typically hadn't used for years. So, for example, I would get in the habit of how I wanted to play, right? I would do a lot of home brewing. So I'm importing and using those tools and editing, and then I would play games and do that. But I hadn't been in a league in a while, so this forced me to uncover some things. Oh yeah, managers. Yeah, how do you do this? Oh, look at all these settings. So not playing in a league and having to do manager settings, and then some of the other features like the draft feature, I got reacquainted with some things that have
Yeah.
been in play like even years ago. And it really opened my eyes to just, wow, there's a whole lot to do. Now with it, it's like, do I have the energy, right, to
Yeah.
make this act like the manager I want it to? I think we can do some great things with it,
I
but
think
it
so.
it really takes, think about each pitcher, right? Do we have a universal thing where we say, hey, anytime any pitcher gives up 6 runs, I want him out, right? Um,
Yeah.
but then there could be some things too where it could be, what if it's a blowout situation? Maybe
Yep.
you want to keep them in to eat up innings. So it's really getting into those intricate little levers. If this
That's right.
lever's
That's
pulled,
right.
where do we go here? So there's so much.
Absolutely. I mean, there's Big Clue. Hey, Big Clue. He's in the house.
Big Clue
Um,
is here. So
I definitely played around with it after, like, for some whatever reason, Beatles didn't pick up the right BBX. So with this one, I did change my stuff. I looked into things such as individual player tendencies. So, for example, I had quite a deep pitching, a lot of pitchers, apart from Cy Young, who
yeah,
let's release him as soon as he stopped this particular sim. Just release him. Anyway, so he doesn't, because he will turn
retire.
up in the game. Yeah, he will turn up in this sim. I promise you. When there's an injury, they'll bring their Cy up. I'm like, I
Oh
don't want
boy.
Cy anywhere near the team. But anyway, I jest because I'm sure Cy Young is a great pitcher. Um, yeah, I think Big Clue has got exactly the same point I've just said. So, for example, I have Fernando Valenzuela, who is a spot starter on my team, but I also made him a bit of a reliever, knowing that there would be a penalty. But I also looked at his statistics, and he's actually really good against righties. So I made sure that the preferences for Fernando individually were that he would only pitch in he would only be, when he would be brought in, most of the time will be against righties. He's better against righties than lefties. Bearing in mind he's a lefty, I'd expect to do better against lefties, but actually better against righties. So I went that much deeper
Hmm.
into the sim, and that's why I see Manchester. Bearing in mind, in most sims, I mean, look at this complete turnaround. Salt Lake at the
Yeah,
top.
because
It's like,
you know what I have in here? I have Utah Mike's on
yeah,
this file now. His I made sure that I might have missed it, like when we started the first game, and
Yeah,
he PM'd me individually, right? And I didn't snap to that. This file that I had ready to go here had the most current BBXs, and I had imported every
there you
manager
go.
file that was most recent. So Utah Mike's is in here. Yours is
That's
in
it. Mine
here.
are in there. Yep,
Mine
yep.
is. So it's apparently the two of you outmaneuvered me because I've shot myself in the
There you
foot because I
go.
used to do much better. But it'll be
Yep.
interesting to see. So big clue, you're just tuning in. We decided to pick up where mine was set to go and do another alternate universe for what Beatles did to see what my sim would have shown.
Todd is getting slammed. Todd,
Yeah,
who has
Utah Mike
this.
and you are really running out now. Of course, Big Clue is steady over there, but I think he already had. I don't think he made any recent changes. He already has his
No,
manager set up.
he's
So
set. So it looks as if, I mean, I'm just guessing, but we're going at a good clip, Manchester. Exactly how I would expect it to be. I say that, and we're playing Jersey, who are just battering us. I don't know who Jersey.
I
That's
wonder
Big
if
Clue.
Cleveland. We'll have to look back see if Cleveland had an injury because that's really low for Todd's team. That team was
He
so
must have
good.
had a few. Yeah, and I forget there is injuries in here as well. You are absolutely right. And look at Ted Williams. I don't think Ted Williams. Babe Herman seems to do very well. Ichiro's just, but Bonds is playing for the first time. Barry Bonds is actually performing
Yeah.
near to his potential. You expect to see Nap Lajoie there. My Lou Gehrig is up there in terms of batting average.
Yeah, Babe Herman. When you
Yeah,
look at his actual
it's
card for
awesome.
that season, I think 393 with power. His OPS is like 200. He's really good.
He's
I just
very
know
good.
that Big Clue hated seeing him out in the field with the three range. He wanted him to DH, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean DeGrom was who I traded for Barry Bonds. He's doing his thing. I mean, it's so tight in the bingo division. Look at that, Steve.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Look at this. And we still
Yeah,
got a
and
long
that's
way to go. We're only 101 games in, so there's still some action
yeah.
here.
The game
This will be
must be
fun.
right now. Well,
This
yeah,
will be
I
fun.
think so. Going back to what I was saying about, there's a couple of things. Definitely look at the things such as depth chart because some bits override other bits.
Correct.
So the Valenzuela bit that I did individually, I want to know how much does that then override his spot starter usage because he's my number one spot starter.
Okay.
And does it really change him? Which one overrides which? Which one is the parent of another part of the engine? Because I
Yes.
think depth chart, in my opinion, should really be the starting point, and then everything flows from there. But I
Yep.
don't know for sure. But I did
And the
play with
one
it. I'm really pleased to say that.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is, and I had no idea till we started getting into this league that you could select the auto depth charts and all that to be based on the player's quality or trying to
Yeah,
emulate real life usage. So it made sense to me because most of the time I've known it to try to replicate, innings pitched or
usage.
games started or at bats, and I had never paid attention over there that you could toggle
No,
that and pick player quality. So I think a lot of, well, I think you talked about McGreevy League where they couldn't figure out why people weren't getting, you
that's
know,
right.
playing time is you might have had somebody that had more at bats that it's putting in there and it's overriding it. And then the same thing about having it selected where it auto rotates to the next lineup. Um,
Yeah,
that was a problem. So it's as soon as we get done here, we can take a peek into here and then we'll lift up the engine and go in there and see some of these
yeah.
settings that are causing us grief.
And I think using this test bingo part that you've done here, that's a really good way to test it out, really, as well, rather than create something brand new again. It's lovely to just test it using what we
And
already knew.
and I can go and zero out the tools, and we can keep doing this and have
Yeah,
different versions and see how it turns out.
yeah. Clue says, yeah, override is the correct word. I think so. And Big Clue is saying here, Steve, I can't see it too well. Big Clue says, watching Todd in fourth place warms my heart.
It's
Which is, and he says, yeah, all the lineups I set had Herman at DH, not right field. And the computer regularly played him in right field despite my lineups. What setting I was not putting correct? What setting was I not putting correctly to prevent the error? Yeah, and it's just working like that puzzle.
Yep.
And it's workable. You can work it out. I think so. I think I worked out mine judging on this little run
Yeah.
now.
Well, I realize sometimes people on this channel and our group are giving me a lot of credit for being some expert, but I'm reminded that I learned this from some girls I used to hang out with college that they gave me this little insight. They said, "Hey, we always if you want to look pretty, just hang out with uglier people, right? If you want to be smart, hang out with." And that's how I feel. I don't consider myself really an expert in this game. Um, I may have
You
some more
just,
experience than some of you here, but
yeah.
I've learned so much just this year and just trying to help out the McGreevy League and all that. And I'm uncovering things that I've never even realized have been
Oh,
enhancements maybe in
Steve,
future versions.
it's like Alice in Wonderland. You just open up another door. There's something magical behind it, but you just don't know until you actually go down it. And it's suddenly you're just opening up new doors, and it's like, wow. And then I found that I'm very analytical myself. I think we all are. And I start to really test my boundaries here, thinking, my God, this game is deep. But then I'm also now thinking, well, how do I game it? How do I master it so that I can whoop Steve, whoop Todd,
Yeah,
and that looks like Mike. Is it Utah Mike Salt Lake? Is that
yeah, and
so?
now I've popped up, but there's been a dogfight right there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how this comes down to. Now here we're going into the last month of the season. Now we're going into September.
And I never even released Cy Young. Can you imagine? I'd love to check his stats. Did he make it in for injuries?
Oh,
Which he
that'll be
does,
good.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
because yeah, did they get to? And I think there was another universal selection, if I remember, where you could allow the GM to manage, right? Or we could, trying to figure out how that might be a large override for
Yeah.
um, some of the maneuvers that we've got some time to play with it this weekend
Yeah.
and get ready. One of the big things I was thinking of, hey, would you, while we're finishing the last month, give me a little insight into the idea you came with? I think I've got it figured
Sure.
out now on how we're going to speed through the draft.
Sure. In fact, I found a little snag, but it's easily got. So what we decided the other day was playing around with it, and on the original draft night, which was one of the Beatles' famous marathons, it was so much
Yes.
fun though. I did watch everyone, and I was enjoying it because it was like a 6-hour thing, and I think we did it over 2 nights, so it's actually 12 hours. I thought there's an easier way of doing this, and I think I remembered from doing my own stuff with cricket and soccer mods that I do. I do drafts at home. I'm a bit of a nerd. And it just came to me. I thought, well, why don't we just roll the dice first to get the year? So say they were 10, say it's you, me, and Clue and I, you, Clue, and I is the right way of saying it,
Mm-hmm.
in a draft right now, and we're playing a bit of solitaire. So we roll the generators. Clue comes up with 1967. Your number is, I don't know, 1924, and mine is 2004. And then immediately the clock starts, and then we have time now to pick our person.
Yeah.
So you will come up with 1924, I guess. I don't know who you'd come up with, but we'd all choose our player within that time frame, and it's done. We did it, and it took apart from us chatting away, we averaged that it would take about 3 minutes to make the decision. Now,
Mm-hmm.
someone came up with something in the Discord to say, well, what if, say, Clue got 1962 and you got 1961, and let's just say for giggles, I got 1959.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance that 3 Mickey Mantles could be picked, which is true.
Yes.
Now, in the Discord or wherever we're typing out pick, I might see that Mantle's gone. But you and I know, and everyone knows, that when you're looking at your players in any given year, you're probably coming down to 2 or 3 people in the end. You think, well, do you know what? In 1962, I'm probably going to pick Mickey Mantle or Roger Maris or Whitey Ford, or you already know your backups in your head, or sometimes you've had a tough decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you'd get around that particular issue. But you'd have to keep your eye on who's been drafted immediately by looking at what's going on the chat.
Yep.
But you still have 5 minutes. You still have enough time to see sugar, But the longer you take to make your decision, the chances are a version of your player might go before you actually pick him. So does that make sense? So if it was you and I and Clue, we get our years, off we go. There's a chance that we may draft the same player, but is whoever's quicker gets him.
Yeah.
So so for 61, 62, and 63, which are very unlikely to come up, but you never know, it could happen, or over a 10-year span between 1960 and 1970, trying to think of a player who played those years.
Well, Willie Mays. I can think of
Willie Mays,
maybe
good
we're trying to grab
example.
Willie Mays because there's a few seasons in there that
in that, yeah, and so Clue gets 61, I get 65, and you get 69. There's every chance we could go for Willie Mays straight away, but the likelihood is unlikely, but it can happen. Statistically, can happen. But if Clue puts Willie Mays 1960, his pick, in first, we have to quickly alter our strategy,
Yep.
which will be quite simple because we've got 5 minutes,
Yeah.
the same 5 minutes. So that's it. All it would really take, though, is a really good, unbiased administrator in the chat, like Clue was before.
Yep. Yep.
Until Clue's turn is to draft, maybe we just switch someone and switch him out. But Clue will always be drafting. And what it will be is every round should take a maximum of 5 minutes. So technically, you could get the whole draft done within 3 hours rather than 6 or 12 hours, which makes a big difference. So what Clue has said here is adding an element to the random generator such that no two seasons of the same round will be within 5 years. That really will help.
Now, if I'm assuming Clue, knowing that he's, I hate to give him that much credit, is very detail oriented, that he's probably found a generator that's going to let him customize to that level, which I think is awesome. The one thing I will say is I think it's interesting. Here's what I'm thinking today too. And my brain, well, my wife's on a vacation here, so I've got my grandkids coming over here later to visit in about an hour and a half. But other than that, I might have some time this weekend to do one key thing. And I'm thinking if we're drafting next Tuesday, hey, Utah Mike is in the house.
Talking about Utah Mike.
Utah Mike, take a look at this. I ran the version to sim out the season of where I had stopped to compare it to what Beatles got. And this one has, I don't know if Beatles had all of the manager files. This one had the updated files for everybody. And you were leading up until the end here. But I think, what if, now this is a lot of research, there's a lot of years, but what's wrong with me spending some curiosity and some time and going and look at each year and saying, hey, who would my top pitcher? Do a little research this weekend. If I was given 1920, maybe I create an Excel list and go, hey, 1920, here's the top pitcher or the top batter that might be there. So I've got a head start to think, oh man, if I get thrown 1920, boom, I know I'm going for, Ruth or Tris Speaker or something like that.
Yeah. That's exactly what I've done already. I've been doing it all week, practicing. I've been playing solitaire. I've been like 3 numbers, Mark. 1959, 1972, 19.
You're putting yourself on the clock. You're out. You're doing interval training right now.
It's great fun, because it's great. And looking at the BBX you've used, it was the last game that was officially played was my one, and I sent it to Peter, bless him. But by the time he got round to doing the update or that chat, the long chat we had in the night. He had picked up your override, which was the league file, rather than the right BBX. That's why he didn't have it. You've got the right one. So, which has got the updates. My update. It's got Utah Mike's update, where that's why I think Utah Mike's team has performed, allowing for injuries, and my team has performed much better. In fact, Todd was knocked down to 4th place.
Yeah, and I think in Beatles, his was on top. So that definitely lets me know, especially for Mike and you, that whatever changes you made in your manager files were at least taken into account, is what my gut would tell me in this
one. I think so. I still finished 3rd, but to beat Todd's team, I'm surprised.
Well, let's take a look let's go to the reports here. Let's take a look at team by team. Let's go to team reports. Let's take a look at you. And this
I can tell you, 91 games, I'm amazed. Well, I'm not amazed because I can tell you exactly what I did, Steve, and maybe you can correct me.
Here's I'm going to search it. I'm going to go by at bat. This is, hold on, replay results. The at bats and innings pitched there, and see if that looks.
That looked exactly the way I wanted, just by looking at the at bats. Apart from Pettis, who doesn't seem to have many, he is a platoon left-handed catcher who hits a lot of home runs, but that's the only one that seemed
seemed to get 16 at-bats in 7 games.
Yeah, but I have a pretty solid team, which does look correct.
Well, Bassler, you basically were splitting time, wasn't it, with Bassler and Almeida, right? So
that's correct, and that seems to be correct as well.
Okay. What about pitchers as far as your game started? It looks like you had pretty much a 4-man rotation, but then you would bring in Waddell and Valenzuela part-time?
exactly what I said earlier. Valenzuela, though he's a lefty, you'd expect to do better against lefties. I made an individual adjustment for Fernando by making sure that he came in against righties because he's actually got a better statistic against righties, even though he's a lefty. Rupert Dell also was had an adjustment on him. Joe Horlin had an adjustment on him. Warren Hacker, again, was a starter and, again, seems to have done pretty well.
He did, yeah,
Oh,
and
I
he's like half time,
can't
right?
see
So
what
he's
his
got
stats.
20 games he was in relief, 26 he
Actually, yeah,
started.
he seems to be the one I messed up because it's 12 and 22. If we'd have stopped by the month, I would have seen that and just took him out of the rotation. But I'm glad to see DeGrom, is it right? DeGrom was 20 and 5.
Yeah, look at that.
That's how I want him to perform.
And look at that whip. I mean, that's probably your best quality
Yeah,
starter,
they
right?
performed they performed up to, I would say, with the exception of probably Hacker. What am I American?
I don't
Hacker.
remember your
Uh,
pitchers being this good as a team in
no,
some of the other replays.
no, not even close. What about Utah Mike's? What about his?
All right, let's take a look at that.
Because his would be the one that would
Yeah, let's
be.
take a look at bats, innings. Yeah, well, he's got Grover, Cleveland Alexander going at it, so that's no surprise. Right? That's probably one of the best pitching lines we had in that league.
Yeah, big clues saying because Wells was giving me so much crap for the last month or so about my
Oh,
lineups of the trade and although to be fair, like I said, I did enjoy his banter to be honest, if not a little bit too much. But here's Wells now. It's literally just saying, the bonds trade did actually work. So the bonds trade, if Wells is there, it didn't go against me, but it'll be interesting what Barry does. Let's look at Mike's team.
yeah. Look at so we've got Cesar Travis, full-time player, right?
Yeah.
Mantilla, I think if I remember right, was playing third base a lot on some of the test games I did. Of course, here's Josh Gibson. Interestingly enough, he hit 39, led the team in home runs, but only batted 262, right?
Not
But he
bad.
was the power.
OPS,
Mickey
though.
Mantle, yeah,
That's a powerful
Martin
team.
Dihigo. It is a
Who
power.
bats
And then
179? Martin Dihigo only batted
in
179.
200, yeah, in 218 at
80
bats.
bats.
Wow.
That's not great.
But Alexander, 1.2 whip, not bad. And
28 and 7. That's a Cy Young award.
oh yeah,
Wow. So then
take
the
a
question really for Utah Mike would be, what did he intend? If you go to his roster, you can see
yep.
his setup. Just see if mine looks like exactly the way I updated it to be.
So we go to Salt
With the
Lake
exception that a monthly,
and
if with a
take a look
monthly,
at.
this was
We
let's
can
take
look at
a
saved
look.
lineups, right? So if you can see, here's saved one
Ah,
versus left, right? And you'll notice here's a second one that gets other people. So this is makes me wonder if the setting. So if we take a look at this,
the sports time machine
yeah.
will, like
So if we
says,
look at that, and here's where we'll get into how to get in the manager. If you look at this, it's a main one. We're saying this is the main one here versus left, right? Or this is where they're on, and it's letting me think that they're rotating. So it's been rotating here to there to there. And if you look at 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all the same, meaning every fifth game, 1 is the unique one. See
yeah,
that?
that's very
That's
interesting.
80% of the time it's going to be 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then when we go to 1, 20% of the time we're going to see 1. And if we do versus right, you're going to see 1 versus right. And here's 2, 3, 4, and 5's next in rotation. So I bet you if we go to lineup, manager, let's see, go to manager.
It's Utah Mike saying Mantilla should not have been in there for, was it? But not have been in there for so many
And look at
at
this. We're
bats.
not advancing. And so lineups versus lefties were stuck on 1. Lineup versus righty was stuck on the number 5 lineup.
And there is the rub, I
Therein
think.
lies the issue. So if you go into the game, a lot of times I've noticed that when you start a league, these boxes all seem to be checked. In other words, advance the next lineup,
Mhm.
which allows for you to have 5 different versions of a versus left or a right, which means if that's what you want, that's cool, but you've got to go in there and make the uniqueness for each one, or you have to say, don't do any of this, don't sub for anything,
Mm,
and stick to number one and versus left and right being the only ones.
yeah, I think I got this because if you go to my one, this is the way I learned it. Right, I could still be wrong. This is why I'm glad you're doing this. But looking at my one, because I think Mike is saying that this is not quite what he was expecting, even though he
Yeah,
did
and,
make
and
some
I think,
changes.
and Mike, just so you know, I had no idea. The other thing I've learned since we've been doing this, because I hadn't been in a league where you would be creating manager files and sending them out, is this is important, right? And I think, for an example, like if I've got my team and I've got somebody that maybe I want to get in there a little more often, maybe I want 2 or 3 or 5 versions of my versus righty, and then I would
Mm,
set this on and let it advance, and that would let me alter it a little bit. But I definitely would want to be conscious of this going in, so I could set it up that way. The other thing is over here when it says, if you notice, it defaults to real life usage under this player preference. So when I go to set like generate, or the computer is generating like generic charts, it's going to look at real life usage, because typically people are trying to emulate a real season,
ah,
which means, and if people played a season and a 500 at bat player only batted 22 times, they go, hey, this manager's jacked up.
yeah,
What's
I
it
think I
doing, right?
changed mine to quality because if you do
Yep.
usage, it depends on what you want, really, I suppose.
So
But if you
if
do
you change it to
usage,
quality, which I never knew
yeah,
existed, I'm not going to do that.
mm,
But it'll then set it based on what it thinks are the best rated, or best OPS and all that. I've never even known this option was there.
it's so deep. I mean, wow. My logical way of approaching this, before I got into it really recently, would be if I was, forget whether it's this game or out of the park or something else. If I was setting up a baseball team, the very first thing I would do in any game is to get the depth chart right, because I think that's what should
Yes.
override everything else. Everything else is an appendage of the depth chart, or same with the rotation. Set the rotation, then build from that point onwards. I did it that way. If you go to, would you mind going to my one for a second, Steve? Because that's the only one I know pretty well. And let's just see if I did that in the right way.
Here's your
In the red
depth.
box. I can't see it just yet. Oh, I'll tell you why. I've just stopped the recording, the YouTube. 1 second. Let me just catch up with you. 1 second. 1 second. Here we go. I've caught up with you now. My screen just stopped. Right, there you go. So if you go to depth chart, I didn't mess around with this too much, but it does. I do remember sitting down there, right, who's my catcher? Bassler is the better catcher with the arm. The range seems wrong there, by the way. I don't know why it says 0. He's not 0. He's 8 range.
It
But
is 8.
anyway,
It says 8 on mine.
oh, does it?
Yeah.
I must be going blind. Anyway, um, what have I been doing to go blind? Anyway, so that's the right, that's the left. Yeah, that looks right. I think Almeida does become eventually my righty, my reserve catcher for sure. But Pettis is, oh, this is the interesting bit. Pettis, I did want to become my kind of guy where he comes in tight situations in the eighth. He does, not as much as he should have. Before you go to first baseman, we all know that's Lou Gehrig. The backup for him would be Bill Pettis if you go to first baseman. So I
Mm-hmm.
did do depth charts first. Let's just see who the first baseman is. Can you see that?
Yep, there's Pettis.
But it will be interesting to see is the amount of at bats he got, which is not many. But then why would he get? Because Lou Gehrig is the Iron Horse.
Exactly. I mean, probably in a
That makes sense.
blowout, maybe, they, late inning, they let him play an inning or something, or late in the game.
I don't know who. Cy Young! Jesus, I can't get rid of that guy. What is he
Let's see
doing?
if Cy Young even got in this league.
God, please no. Please no.
Let's go to his card, because this is another view I love in the game, is looking at the card. Oh, he never got in. Look, there's no replay stats for him. So he stayed in the
Well,
minors the entire time.
that is wonderful. That is
Now let's look at
marvelous.
Pettis. Here's Bill Pettis, and we can see he didn't get a lot of action, but he's backing up Gehrig. So look, he got in 6 games and got 16 at-bats.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I did find something interesting with World's Worst Gamer as well, because we looked at one of the stats around his pitching. So if you go to my rotation, please, Steve. Sorry to be a pain.
No, that's no problem. I don't know how much of a lag is when I do this. So let's go to, your
It's
rotation tab.
live.
I just clicked
It's
on it.
actually instant. And if you go to my that's it. So I went with the philosophy of let me pick 4 pitches because 4 pitches are better defined than 5. Like I think you had the same philosophy you went with 4.
Mm-hmm.
DeGrom, Randy Johnson. I don't know how Johnson did, but I imagine he did pretty well as well. I think. I'm not sure. Um, but I just said to myself, well, a 4 is great. The spot starters seem to work as well based on the replay stats. I think you've got real stats there.
Oh yeah, I
If
can
you go
turn those
to,
on. Yeah, I was just clicking on their card to see them, but I can
yeah,
change it down here.
I'm pretty confident that if we stopped obviously to check our people every month, then I would have probably taken Hacker out eventually. I might even have won the division. But anyway, that's another story for another day. But Valenzuela, see, he played what I would reasonably expect him to do. Played what he performed the way Randy Johnson did, DeGrom
Well,
did,
let's take a
Vaughn
look
Blue
at. Did
did.
you do anything? Let's take a look at his use. Let's see what you did with. Did you, I think you said you got down and tweaked some of their.
I tweaked Fernando. Yeah. So if you go to, I don't know if you can see, if you look down on the second row where it says, let me just widen my screen a bit because I can't
Limit
see.
pitching versus left hand. You put that on
There
there.
you go. Because I knew his real stats said, took me by surprise. I thought lefty would get better against lefty and worse against righty. But actually, his real stats suggest he's better against righties than lefties. So that's why. And that's why he performed more to his real stats because I tweaked it.
Yep.
So, and again, if I think you go to Rube Waddell, although he didn't perform very well, Rube Waddell, I also did something with. So it is deeper than you think. Well, you know this anyway yourself.
Oh,
But
there's
once
right.
I kind of got the hang of it, I thought, you know what? So the guy I'm looking for is Rube Waddell. There you go. Now Waddell, I also did the same thing in reverse. He's more traditional righty lefty, limit pitching versus righties,
Mm-hmm.
because he's worse against righties than lefties. And I think that's why we won 90 games because I did those little tweaks, which I learned from obviously watching yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the availability of Waddell on the top row, where it says start Jan 1st, ends December 31st, I want him to always be active if available.
Yep.
What will be interesting to see is what I did with Cy Young. What I should have done is just release him.
Yeah. You didn't say only activate in emergencies. You basically said, I don't want to ever see this guy.
That's it. Yeah.
And guess what? It listened, at
Never
least it
saw.
didn't pull it in. Yeah.
So did I do that? Did I actually click only activate in emergencies?
Yep.
There you go.
That was smart.
I,
Randy
so
Johnson, nothing. So this is a good point that you can come in and tweak the individual player as another layer of detail beyond just the general managerial philosophy. I would call
and
this, right?
yeah,
This
there's
would be
one more
just your
thing.
philosophy on, hey, are you a hit and run? Are you a small ball manager? You could come in here and put some of these global
Correct.
decisions, but then it's, do you go down to the player specific and research how you want them to be a pinch hitter, or how do you
Yeah,
want to utilize them
the,
or pull them?
that's right. And even on this page with Bunt, I took Bunt down from where it's on the first column on the left. Bunt. The original default setting is off. I think is often. I took it down to average. I know that I
Okay.
did that. And also, when it comes down to the bottom where it says lineup preferences, I stuck with the 2 basic lineups: lineup versus lefty, lineup versus righty.
Yep.
That's it. Sub for tied catches, definitely. Do not advance next lineup after each game. And do not sub for players on pace to do real life usage. I kept it at real life usage, and next time I'll just keep it on quality.
Yep.
But that
And
was okay. And
here's
there's
another
one
one
more.
to remember. If this one's checked, allow computer GM to make roster changes subject to league rules. Having this check might mean you're giving the computer permission to
Exactly.
screw with your commands.
And I took it off. And if you go to manager preferences, last thing on my one, because you can check the others, I saw something with World's Worst Gamer, which he threw up, which is correct. If you go to my manager preferences screen, oh, you're on it, sorry. There's there's another way for people to see if that's complicated screen. Um, we just said allow GM to make roster changes. That one I'd untick
Yep.
because then I'm now telling the AI, don't mess with me, just go with
Yep.
my stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it just takes some time, right? But it was a reminder to me that and it has been a while since I've been in a league and we've sent manager files in, and there's a lot of options that are here that I hadn't noticed or used years before. So I don't know what version some of these came in, but this one about setting those initial lineups as a starting point based on real life usage makes sense because that's what most people are trying to get as far as realism is get them close to their at bats and innings pitched for replays. But in a draft league like
Absolutely.
ours, we're definitely want the best quality in there, right? Um,
Yeah, Sports Time Machine, thanks for that. He mentioned about Fernandez. I didn't know that until I delved into the stats of Fernando. I thought, he's right, he
yeah.
throws a screwball. So that makes complete
Well,
sense
I want to go
that
look
his
at.
glove gets
We
righties.
still don't have a believer in Jersey over here. I'm going to go take a look at Jersey and see what was going on when it comes to settings. Let's take a look at their lineup. Well, here's the pitching rotation. Maybe Big Clue can let us know whether that was intended or not.
It looks good. It looks like he's intended it to be that way,
Yeah.
just for the number of starters.
And if we go to
His
daily
depth.
lineups, let's go to his manager tendencies to see what we had on here. Okay, we had this unselected, which means it wasn't advancing. So he was stuck on his number one versus left and number one versus right.
He got that right.
But look at
But
this,
his
MV.
GM, yeah.
That was on.
See, that was on, and the GM is on. Make allow GM. You should unclick that.
Unclick that, and it won't be overriding things. So interesting.
There
So
you
if we look at
go.
his, let's take a look at who was it he was mad about. See if we can.
I think that's where
Oh,
sliding Billy Hamilton went wrong with Ed McGreevy.
here's Babe
It might have
Herman
been because of that.
fielding. Yeah, so Babe Herman DH 98 and played in the field 63. So I'm not sure if you had him platoon where he was in the field versus one or the other, or that got mixed up, but or the GM overrode it and put him in the
GM
field.
overrode it. Because if you go to his depth chart, that might
All right.
indicate where he really wanted, where Clue wanted Babe. What did he want to play in right field or just be? Because wasn't Babe Herman a really terrible fielder,
Yes.
from what I understand?
He's a 3. Yeah, he's a 3 in right field. Great hitter, but
If you go to right field, who did he have in his depth chart?
Babe Herman. There you go. That's your answer. That's so that
That's
with
the
that
problem.
depth chart, now if we do this, let's see if we experiment with him here. Let's go to his settings. I always forget who he's the Blue Crabs or something. Yeah, there we go. Let's go to his manager settings and say, um, let's change this to quality, player quality.
Mm.
Let's reset lineups in depth and let's go see what that does, right? So now if we went to his depth and we go to right field, look what it did.
Yeah. And Clue is saying he did not have Herman in right field and depth chart. He's right. But that's probably because he has the
It did.
GM overridden.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
the
what
GM
happened?
was
What
cooked.
happened here is this is an important thing for us now that we've learned this. Is I've hit the wrong button again. Is when we make all these intricate changes. Let me say that right. We need to ensure that this button, which appears it might be a default setting, allow
It
GM
is.
to make this to be turned
It
off.
is.
One thing that we can do overall in the league rules is take a look at our league rules and see if that's a set like a global setting that makes it default. And
I think it does. I think it does. But that's what I learned from listening to you anyway. I just remember thinking, um, yeah,
let's look
I
at
would
general.
definitely recommend everyone takes it off. I don't know if it's a global setting, but definitely take it off and set it to real life usage rather than, sorry, set it to quality usage versus
Oh yeah, here, look at
real life
this.
usage.
Allow general manager to make roster changes subject to preference. Say not recommended. So we should just shut that off.
Shut that down.
unless that we have a team that is abandoned and there's no human control over it. Then
Yeah, totally
we would
agree.
probably let the computer decide whatever the heck it wants to do. But yeah, I think that was forcing everybody's individual manager screen to
Yeah,
automatically have that box, which is then it's kind of like you're going to let them do everything for you and take the easy way out. Or once you start giving it commands, we need to uncheck that so it's not going to fight you.
correct. Yeah, and I'd agree with that.
Yep.
And can you look at World Select Gamers
Yeah.
lineup? There's something I did notice with that as well, which we looked
Uh,
into a stat on
what
that
the heck
night.
is
We had
world's
that
worst
discussion.
gamer? Oh, or Sarnia.
He's
I'm like, what's the name?
Sonia Sluggers.
Okay, we're gonna look at depth.
And the look at depth, and I don't know what his depth was, but I know you're retired, Wells, but here's the thing. When you look at his rotation, I spotted something for him, which was the depth chart should be easy to set. There you go. Jose Fernandez, there was a game where Jose Fernandez was not used in a situation where he should have been. And I said,
Like a
make
save
sure you
situation.
have. Yeah, there was something that he was obviously should have been used, but he wasn't. But when you look at the bullpen, so that's the rotation. Go to bullpen, Steve. Sorry, go to bullpen on the same page where the rotation thing was. There you go. Now, what I noticed was where it says preferred relief pitchers wasn't being used. So I said we need to look at that because I understood his setup. He was light on pitchers for a start. That was his bullpen thin. That's one of the reasons he used a starter in a safe situation where Fernandez should
Yeah.
have come in. However, what I noticed is on the just below that it says preferred relief pitchers, and then the situations. So it's a box we need to look at for the relief. Do you see it? Just underneath, it says preferred relief pitchers.
Oh
Come
yes.
down just a bit, yeah. So in this particular case, you could choose:
Oh
does
yeah.
Dibble come in? Does Hernandez come in? And again, that will then override anything stupid the AI might be considering. So in this case, I think it was a blowout. I can't remember
It's
what it was,
true.
but
See, look at that. I just had the computer do that. Okay.
yeah, no,
Now it's
I
going to
said
try to
no.
simulate. Now let's go back to his settings here and change this from real life to player
Mm.
quality and
And
reset
it
depth
resulted in
charts.
him not being used the entire season, I think, or when we did some tests.
And
But when I looked
now
at that game in particular,
now it changed a little bit of that. But what's funny is preferred relief pitchers, the computer doesn't auto populate this.
no, it doesn't.
This
And I
mean
think
this
that's
requires manual intervention to call out
absolutely.
these. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a historian baseball fan, but if I use my New York Mets, which I do remember from 1986, I
Oh, this is
knew
good.
that the choices of pitcher in the ninth inning would either be Roger McDowell or Jesse Orosco. And McDowell would normally
Yeah.
be the setup man. And therefore, that's his piece. But you have to tell the AI that's what
Yeah.
you
So if
want.
I'm
Otherwise,
pretending I could say long, like first or fourth inning, right? Fifth inning,
yeah.
somebody like a Wilbert Wood,
Yeah,
and then those will stick. And then if I've got ninth inning, we bring a Jose Fernandez in, or well, it's a starter. Never mind, but
yeah. It's
Roberto
deep. The game
Hernandez.
is deep. The
Yeah.
game is so deep. But that would solve those issues. It's just, and
I
I
have
learned that just
never, I got to tell you this too. I've played around with this when I've just been setting up teams for my own grins and giggles.
yeah.
I've never even gone down, be honest, and
That's
even
grown.
realized that I can set the situation. But then we could also say, okay, Roberto Hernandez, I've got him for ninth inning or later. Let's say I do this, right? He's my first choice. Maybe he's my only choice.
He doesn't have many
Okay.
pitches, but yeah,
But if I go to him and I can go to usage, now I can fine tune him as a player.
yeah, yeah.
Um, always pull when tired, always
Ah,
pull for closer, pull after so many runs. Relief preferences. Don't pitch
yeah.
until, like I can say here, don't
You
ever
did it
pitch
there,
him
yeah.
until this at least seventh inning or sixth inning, and don't pitch him past,
Absolutely.
or just say never or whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of things to tweak here.
It's intricate, but if you take it step by step, I learned this just by watching you do some of your tutorials. I thought, okay, this
Well,
makes
you
sense.
got to be motivated to do this because it does.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
you could
true.
just get lost in here.
Yeah, big time.
And here's
I mean, obviously,
interesting.
you
We
can
could
just
go
put it
back and see how he was used, right? Um,
in this rundown. Yes. Let's have a look.
hmm, I can see how he compiled his. Let's take a look at the first game he came in.
Was he used a lot? I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. He did some spot starts. It looks on
Yep.
that particular one.
The one I was looking at is Roberto Hernandez. Let's take a look at him and see how he was
I
used.
like those logos,
Yeah,
Steve.
8
Where'd
save.
you get the logos from?
What's that? I made them.
Where did you get?
What
Oh,
I did
really?
is I just started searching for some logos that had like sluggers on it, for example. Found a few, and
Ah,
then I added the Sarnia to it.
gotcha. I like it. It's good.
I
My
try to
one's actually
take the
quite bland.
laziest approach.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a rabbit hole. I mean, for you know how we
yeah,
all are with stats and reports
yeah,
and all
yeah,
this.
yeah. I
This
mean, I delved
is
down it.
man. We could you'll be spending all our time digging into
Yeah,
a lot of this, but it is
but
interesting because even with mine, I didn't get to that level. I'm trying to think if I left my. I think I
and I think
changed
that's
my.
why the bingo division is much more tighter now because
Yeah.
you have my BBX in there updated and also Mike's in there as well.
Oh, do you see what
So
happened?
it
I don't
bucks.
even have this option now because I shut this off at the overall rules screen, so now we can't even toggle this on.
Gotcha. It's
Um,
interesting. It's so interesting to
Let me
play
take a look at
around
my
with it.
staff here. What did I went with a 4-man rotation,
You did.
and I
You did
spot
indeed.
started Newhouser that got 7 starts. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, this pitching staff. That's probably these 4 were good starters for me.
Mm.
I mean, even Gooden with a 4.14 ERA, I'm not convinced that that's really that bad in this kind of league with the
In
hitters
this
we
kind
have.
of league, yeah, 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 definitely.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. I'm really pleased to see the difference though, because
what did we
in
get
my
as far
team is a
as?
massive difference.
Let's take a look at leaders here.
So
What am I
Big Clue
looking
has
at here?
just
How about I
changed
go to?
his management preferences from real life usage to performance based, and the AI has set all my depth charts for rotation. Yeah, and then it's
Yep.
down to you to Clue to retweak after that depth chart
Yeah, and I
rotation.
think we just make sure everybody feels comfortable and go through this before we
Yeah.
start sending managers off. But look at the Suzuki really ran away with the batting title here.
Where did Lefty O'Doul come as well? Oh, look at my man, Pebbly Jack. Look at that.
Oh yeah, I know you like him.
I love him. He's awesome.
Look, 69 stolen bases. Oh, is that a leader? Oh no, look, Juan Pierre for Robbie beat out
Yeah.
Joe Morgan for the stolen base crown over here.
Yeah, but look at that one too. Joe Morgan, Pebbly Jack, steal stolen bases.
Now, did
And
you
I
have
have
your setting on steal more
no,
often? Just
no,
average.
no, no. Just average.
Okay, interesting.
Home runs. Who hit the most home
So
runs?
let's take a look here. Where is the home runs
Bonds.
at?
Look at
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Bonds actually
Bonds and
performed.
Griffey Jr. with 43.
And Sosa 41.
Yep.
That's the best Sammy's played so far.
I had Hornsby up there with 34. That's pretty interesting.
Lefty O'Doul played up 2 levels. So did Sammy Sosa. My offense must have been pretty awesome, to be fair.
That's interesting. You know what I would like to take a look at because I hadn't seen how this played out. Let's look back at the league. I think we can get a league report on injuries, current
Yeah, you
injuries. Let's
can.
just do injury history. Let's take a look at every injury that occurred. These will even be 1 game injuries.
That's big.
To,
Says you guys keep saying it. This is deep indeed. It
yeah, it
is.
is. It is. And look at this list of all these injuries we had. Some of them minor.
Jeez.
So let me see current. Let's just take a look at that.
Fascinating to look at. Them. Oh, look at Bonds
Who's
he did
currently
well.
hurt? Yeah, DiMaggio hurt his ankle.
Not for long though, right? Is
Ah,
that
Tris Speaker stubbed his toe. Yeah, it's interesting. Let's take a look at league. So if we look at all-star voting, we can see how the game would have awarded the pitcher, Pete Alexander by far. Look at that. Well, but I guess he just barely edged Whitey Ford
That's
for Big Clue.
interesting. DeGrom was in the top as well.
I got Mike Scott with more votes than Bob Gibson. What's up with that? We can see the best catcher and Posey. I tell you what, there's a guy that was never on my radar going into this league.
He looked good. I could tell he
And
was
I
working
think I
well.
got 2012. And when I saw him and how he stood out that year, I got lucky with that year because he turned out to be a kind of a steal for me as a catcher.
I'm really interested by third baseman because Al Rosen was platooning, and I can see Al Rosen got some votes.
He did.
He
And
he'd be
Beltray, I had him
close.
in there almost. So Fox playing third base, great move there.
But here's the point about the 19th century players that I learned, and I don't mind sharing this because I think everyone's figured it out. Don't get 19th century pitchers, but do get the 19th century hitters. That's what I would learn from
You know,
this.
I think the ERA plus and the OPS plus is such a good indicator because it's comparing them relative to their era. And if you're
Yeah.
going to look at people across, the ballparks they played in at different times, that's probably one of the best indicators. Here's a
Yeah,
surprising
definitely.
thing. The first player in the draft, I don't know if Big Clue's seeing this, the top all-star vote getter, Alan Trammell.
Oh, really? Wow.
And he beat out people like A-Rod,
A-Rod, Monty Irvin,
Ernie Banks, Willie
Bill
Wells.
Dunn. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why is Satchel Paige? See, that's interesting. Who has Satchel Paige? Because Satchel Paige never did
Wasn't that
anything. But
uh,
that might be a GM roster thing or a usage thing
who
because he
was
did
that?
not pitch.
Was it Utah Mike had it?
Maybe.
Hey Beatles,
Right,
we are
Beatles.
MV and I are on here. We're dissecting. We're learning the managers, the game deeper by dissecting. I simmed out where I had left off before you did your sim with our old league, and we're looking at how the manager settings impacted things. And I guess we call this looking under the hood.
Under the hood.
Look at this, Babe Herman, your all-star right fielder, designated hitter, Glasscock.
Jack Glasgow. I'm very happy with the line of my head. And the pitching of my Liverpool. They seem to hold up.
Yes.
390 win game. Teams won in the bingo division. I think there were 3 teams with 90 wins. So it's definitely had an effect playing around with the preferences, at least for my team anyway.
Let's see who got the best of who. Here's the team versus team report.
I definitely kicked your button.
Man, no, let's see. No, look, you were 5-13 against me. MV,
Last
look
time.
at this. You beat up on Mudville 10 wins to 2 losses. Who did you
I can't believe
struggle
we had
against?
2 losses. I like Beatles.
You really struggled against my team and Big Clue.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And here's who I lost. I only won 4 out of 12 against Big Clue. I did okay against everybody else, I guess. Well, I broke even against Aaron, and I was 4-8 against Jersey.
Good.
Isn't it funny how some of us, the Nemesis was a different team, and it just kind of rotated that way?
Maybe to the ballpark settings, I guess. Certain teams. Detroit hammered me. I mean, that is you. But apart from that, Cleveland also much closer this time.
Yeah.
Look at Mudville. Who did Mudville? Mudville tied with Lexington and Badlands.
Yep. In Mudville, it looked like you, me and you did very well against Mudville.
Yeah.
It's great. Beatles could just come in now to hear that. He's probably excited. Perfect timing. Right? All in good fun. But I think more importantly is this is a fun way for any of us. To your point, MV, we've all got like an iteration of this file wherever it was, right? Go in there and
Yeah,
change some of those settings, um, redo it and tweak it, and then run a sim. See what it does if it's listening to you, right?
yeah, definitely on this one
Because
it did, and
it seemed like what we saw with these results is what you would expected the manager to do.
100%, and the players performed much better. Again, I can only look at my own ones, but I definitely know
Yep.
Lefty O'Doul, Sammy Sosa, the pitchers particularly, if that's on replay stats, that is correct. Yeah,
Yep.
Vida, Randy Johnson was superb. Again, with Randy Johnson, I'm pretty sure I had a little tweak in with him as well.
Let's take a
So I
look.
pretty much played around with them. Rube, we knew about. Joe Horner didn't do well. I'll have to look at Joe and see what went wrong there.
Looks like pretty standard. I don't think you gave him any extra.
No, it looks standard. But he's good anyway, Randy Johnson.
Fun
I'm
stuff.
just pleased.
What we found, Beetle, since you're popping in here, is we had a rules setting here that seems like it might be logical, right? Like, hey, allow the computer manager to make roster changes. I never thought about this when we set the league. It's like, okay, cool. We turned that on, and when that was turned on, it applied that to all of us, meaning that when we would go into an individual team, like if we take Manchester here, let me make this real. We'll turn that rule back on. So if we're going here to say allow this to happen, okay, that then, if we go into Manchester, would put, or not Manchester, what's Mudville? And we look at your manager, you'll notice that it's auto set to allow the computer. So no matter what you do in here, it's always going to give the computer GM the ability to override and make changes. So that needed to be
Take that off.
unchecked. The easy way to
Mm,
do it is just go to the main rules and have it as an option that'll be grayed out for everybody. And this
yeah,
way, it allows, like look at Beatles. Beatles is advancing lineup to lineup,
and
and if you don't have them all
strange.
set differently or you don't want to do that, that's a problem, right? So if you wanted it to just be, hey, I just want one left and one right, then we'll take advance off because otherwise it's going to advance. Um, Same thing for this. Do we want to occasionally sub to try to get player real life usage? Well, maybe yes, maybe no, right?
Mm,
And this one, pick your usage preference based on real life usage or player quality. That's a big one too. So I think we've learned a few things
mm.
through here for sure.
Definitely. And like I said, if I was doing it in any game, I'd go with my depth chart first, then my rotation, then my bullpen,
So let's take a look
then
at
my bullpen
Beatles'
references.
depth chart and look at this. He's got, okay, that doesn't bother me. Yeah, Johnny Bench. First baseman, he's got Ripper Collins. Second base, we've got Doyle and Bachman. Third baseman, Clift, right? Shortstop, Grote. Look at this. Shortstop, Grote over Honus Wagner.
Wow. And I bet you if you put Honus in his correct position, how many at bats did Honus actually get, though? That's interesting.
So let's take a look at this. I'm going to bet Dick Grote, 500 at bats. Honus Wagner,
Look at that, 38 games, shocker.
141. Now let's go to real and see if it mimicked that. So if we go to his real stats,
Not even close.
Dick Grote had 631 and Honus Wagner 512. So we're putting the value in trying to hit real player usage. So let's go back to Mudville and let's try to remedy this a little bit here. And I'm going to say manager preference. Let's go quality.
And as you can see straight away, it
Limited
does
depth.
say on Mudville, it does say,
Look at
if
that.
you go back to, yeah, that's
We go to
better.
quality and it's like, yeah. So when we sit here and go, hey, this manager's dumb. Yeah, it's dumb because it thinks it wants us to do something like emulate start. So
Yeah.
this would change his lineup right away.
And therein lies the record of the
Oh,
Mudville
yeah.
Knights.
Honus Wagner being the starter over Dick Grote. Yeah, that's going to make a difference in some wins. Guaranteed.
Massive difference. And if you go to modify team at the top of the page, sorry, manager at the top of the page,
Oh, sorry.
next to modify at the top, you can it automatic, not that one, sorry, the other one, the manager tab. it's defaulted to allow GM. So take that off for Beatles. As you can see, it says allow GM to make roster changes.
Mhm.
Yeah, or do it for the league, either way. And then, yeah, then his team will perform
Mhm.
exponentially better. No
And then if
question.
he wants to really get in and say, hey, I don't ever want Wagner out, he could go in here under the player tab and really start fine tuning. Don't like it's saying don't pull for late inning sub, don't use as a late inning. In other words, you could start making settings to say like here, never make sure it says never pull, um, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Holiness has to play. It has to play.
well, when they're looking at usage, they're trying to get Dick Groat more games at shortstop
Yeah.
because he played more.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So I would always go with depth chart first. Then if I don't like
let's look
it,
at
then
his
sit around or
rotation. Let's see
yeah.
what happened in the rotation here. So if we look at this is what the computer would want to do. Let's look at what his computer what they did. So if we look at games started, they had Kid Nichols, Osteen, Hunter, and Sane, and now you've got Walters, Philippe, Osteen, and Trout then Hunter. So if they're going by quality, they would have had a completely different lineup than the computer did for you, trying to
Try.
emulate usage. It's a completely different lineup.
Yeah, totally.
So it
It's
also
interesting.
we could do what is manager generate default manager. So we could come in here and kind of do an overall
Mm.
setting here, or go right into the manager preferences and really start fine tuning. So there's a
Where
couple,
did you get that screen from, Steve? To
it's
just
right
default
next to it.
manager.
So if you go here to manager, you can go into the preferences, or you can generate a default manager right here and tell it to that you want to do just certain things, like if you want to
Oh wow, that's
erase
actually
the line.
easier to
It
use.
is, yeah. If I want to create, now once you set it to real life usage in that, or quality, you could come in here and select different things and set these tendencies and then tell it to generate a
Yeah,
manager
it's really
as a
deep,
head
man.
start and then tweak.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Um, anyway, but yeah, there's two things, Beatles. I think it's our drafting, right? I mean, that's interesting. How with the players we have, then it's how we want to use them, and then how are we letting the computer manager know how best to use them, how we think they should be?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he probably missed it, MV, when you were talking about how you researched and realized that Valenzuela, you want him against righties, not the logical lefties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I took a bit of research and he performed, which is much better. When all the other test sims had Valens when he didn't perform, I thought I've got to get the best out of Fernando somehow.
And now with
You know,
this
what's wrong with
newfound
him?
information, MV, how are you going to sleep between now and the draft?
And just to clarify, the draft is not on Saturday, it's on Tuesday, is that right? Because
That's
it
what I'm
was
hearing.
29th
That's
originally.
what I'm hearing. Um, that yeah, it's
Because I thought it was the 29th, but apparently it's Tuesday, I'm hearing. So I don't mind either way, as long as I know because of my time difference, I've got to make sure I get sleep. But
I
I'm up
think
for it.
I'm free. I'm pretty much unchaperoned here for the next week or so, so I'm okay anytime doing the draft in the evening. I would say for those of us that are going to participate is that doing the research ahead of time can help when it's the
Big
green
time.
light and go. I mean, I think MV, you've admitted that you have come in already, or you spent time looking at players in certain
I'm
years.
no, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, that's what I mean. I go to sleep counting years and thinking, right, random year, 1932, right, who do I think of? Immediately comes to mind Lou Gehrig or Babe Ruth, because those are two obvious ones
Yeah,
I know, but then I have to go real deep and then start pulling out the old baseball reference, having a look. And that other thing, I found a website I think you put on draft night or just before draft. Is it the PEVA ratings, PEVA ratings? Where there's a website that shows the best pitchers in that year, best hitters in that year, best hitters of the decade. It's a really good resource.
hmm,
I think you
interesting.
put it up on screen. I thought, is this where the Sly man got it from? Right. Got to compete with Steve.
Uh-oh, look out. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I was looking at Ken Castro. I'll just share this. I don't know if anybody's interested, but ballparks, right? So I know one thing to think about. I know we're trying to have our team names ironed out, right? I think the one thing to think by the time before we get going for sure is we got our team names down, but what park do you want to be in and what year? So to me, once you have your team assembled, then we can, use the what if tool or whatever you want to think about what kind of team you have and whether you want to put them in a pitcher friendly or hitter friendly park, right?
Yeah.
Um, Thinking of park layouts, uh, Jerry Park here in Montreal was one that I just the other day during lunch, I'm like, hey, I don't think I have a good
Oh,
picture
that
for
looks
that.
so cool.
Let me see.
That is so. All your ballparks are just amazing.
Let me see. Here's Jerry Park. So there's a new one. So I think we had some of these, right? I had some that look like this. This one's not bad here of an
A
old
lot of.
image that I had of
You
them,
can
right?
expand it, can't you? To get rid of the stands. Yeah, I
But
like that.
this is one. Here's one back then. But I had just found one of the Grigsby artworks that I run through the Gigapixel, and this is one that I went with. So I went ahead and set this up to use in a game and kind of
Mm.
and cropped it.
Where did you
Um,
get them from, Steve?
I just typed. I'll type the ballpark and like whatever park it is, and just type image into Google and see what the search comes up. I know
Yeah, I suppose so.
Gary Grigsby, who's done some, I think some war games, is better known for some of the war games he's been involved in. Does some digital art with ballparks, and sometimes those images will pop up. Although they're small in pixel size, I've run them through Gigapixel here to kind of enhance it for the
Right,
games. But that's one
right.
that I found. The one that I have for Detroit, I really like too, but I think I call that one like Briggs or Tiger Stadium. I think I highlighted
Wow,
it in one of the games. I made this be
you
my
got some.
home
You
because
got some
this.
stadiums.
Okay, here's one that I kind of like. This was a gigapixel for this is a 1940s version.
I love that one, the Brick Stadium. That's awesome.
Okay, and then I haven't really set that one up. This is what it originally looked like. Okay, and then I ran it through the Giga and kind of zoomed in a little bit, and this is what it came out to be. And
Nice. I actually like that one. Actually, that's kind of bright. Nice.
and then there's this one I did right here, and then this is one I found that I really liked of Briggs
Oh,
Stadium.
that's beautiful. Beautiful.
So I did
That looks
that.
like it's from. That looks like it's from MLB The Show. And by the way, I pulled the trigger on the my PlayStation 5. It's sitting beside
Uh
me right now.
oh. Oh. I don't know if you know that I got one a month ago when my grandkids were coming, and my
Oh,
grandsons
awesome.
will be over here in a little bit, and they'll be down there playing games. They love it. They're 6 and 8, but they love it.
Oh,
Right? It's
wow.
amazing how they can do it. But I haven't pulled the plug yet on getting MLB The Show yet because I'm afraid. What am I going to do? I don't have that much time, and you know what I mean. And go
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and then I'm going to want to tinker. And what about this? Like
You're
Legend Sports
scrolling,
Universe? What do I
but
do?
Spongebob also got some great stuff on. I've got it on. I've got it on my PS4, and I've got MLB The Show 22 there, so I know I can get um, the rosters
Yep.
from there. But he said he hasn't done it for PS5 yet, so I said, okay, cool.
I'm looking.
Yeah,
Speaking of Naven Field, see what I got here. Oh, here's some Naven. Here's one that I've done that I was trying to clean up. This is a 1937 that I ran through Gigapixel of Naven Field.
awesome.
And then I had some couple iterations. There's that's what they'll originally look like when I download them, and then sometimes like here's one. I run it through Gigapixel and it cleans it up a little bit better, and I can make the
That's
image
nice.
bigger. And then I have Bennett Park, which is even before Naven, and I believe
My favorite field is Abbott's anyway. It's just,
here's
and I
one.
played the Baker Bowl in Out of the Park baseball. I played it the other day on my channel, and
Yeah.
I was shocked at how the Lifebuoy sign in the right field looks just amazing. I mean, that guy Silvam, or I don't know what his real name is, but it's Silvam on the website, on the
Oh
site.
yeah.
His ballparks on Out of the Park are just sensational.
Let me see Ebbets. Look how many I have for Ebbets. Let's go through. I
Evans is
have
the main one for me. That's the one I love. It's my home. For the red bolts.
I have different versions here. I have one
That's a
that
nice one.
I could probably run that through and
Mike
clean up a little
Silver.
bit.
That's a Mike Silver's the name of the guy. I call him
Yeah,
Sylvan, but it makes sense now. It's his name backwards.
yep.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
Here's some older ones. So these are ones that I've just acquired over time.
It's very clean.
And there's like a real photo shot. Sometimes I don't care for the ones if I can't see all the way down the line.
Yeah, that
I
one's
get a
got
little bit
shadows, that
picky.
one.
Here's some different ones. This is the one that I think everybody seems to really like. This is one that I think I've featured on some of the.
That one there. That's the one I like.
Yeah,
I have that one.
that
I love this one.
I think that's one of my favorites, just in how it looks. And I have a lot of people always ask about this one too. These are
It's
from
just,
another game, might be MLB Heat or something like that.
yeah, that one I do like.
Here is okay. There's a 1932 one that is downloaded from the OOTP 3D models.
Yeah, yeah. He's got a better one now.
Yeah, and now they've got 1948. So yeah, I've got quite a few
Oh,
for Ebbets. I don't know if anybody wants to take a look at parks. I'm happy to show them off if there's any
it
somebody
just looks
doesn't
great.
have anything good for. Let's look at Yankee Stadium. Not really.
It shows you how much we love these games. You just stand and sit and just look at the parks. It's just like amazing.
Yeah, this is why this is called the Baseball Geek Squad, as my wife would say.
Yeah.
So how many Yankees do I have? Let's see, okay, I've got that one.
That's right, big clue. Steve might own the parks, but God created them.
Yeah,
Absolutely. See, that was a bit faded, these pictures, those ones, a little bit.
yeah. These are
This
ones
is
that
my
I.
way.
It's like I don't want to get rid of them, even though some of these I know are so faded. I don't like them and I'll never use. I can't delete them. I don't know
Mm,
why. Here's one. This is a little clearer.
yeah, much clearer.
Um, Yankee old. Let's see, 1927. So let's take a look at this. This would be a starting image from like a Grigsby design. Here's a 1941, and then here's 1941 after I've run it through Giga to try to get the field to look a little bit better. And you'll notice it will morph some of the bleachers in that, but it's an attempt to try to get the. Here's a 1950s look. It's kind
Nice.
of cool.
Hello, Pip. Pip's just joined you, Steve. Pip 99.
Hey, hey. Here's Yankee Stadium
I like that one. I
1976.
like this one.
And that's another one that we could, you could always run through Gigapixel. And
Awesome. Look at that sky. I don't know. There's
here's
something
one
I
I
think
really
about
like
the
right here.
ballparks.
I like this one.
That's cool. What is that? Just Yankee Stadium old, right? That's
Yeah,
awesome.
classic. Hey, if we want to experiment, let's take 76 right here and run it through Gigapixel.
That looks awesome.
So I
Hey,
can go to
Pip.
my ballparks.
Look at that lefty O'Doul, 147 RBIs. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. I love lefty. I fall in love with lefty, and I've realized from researching lefty O'Doul, I've learned about Chuck Klein as well. It's nice. Chuck Klein didn't make it into the league, did he? I don't remember his name. There's so many players that didn't make it into the Howie Shanks Bingo League.
And there we go. So now that's me zooming in on
Yeah.
1976 a little bit. And then I could go and crop that and do whatever I want. But it's just it distorts a little bit of the text in here, but you're getting a little bit bigger image and
Mm.
in some of that. So that's one thing that I've used to help out with some of the
Yeah,
ballpark
Chuck Klein
sizes.
Beatles, you're right, he didn't. Looking for him. And again, what I like about this whole stuff, Steve, I've learned about ballparks, being a guy across the pond who has knowledge, but my God, it's gone
Yeah.
up massively. Just learning about these players, Chuck Klein, what a home run hitter.
Yeah. Here's Pib. Pib is in. Welcome, Pib. I don't know if he's interested in the league. Our
So
reboot of
that,
getting ready to start from scratch.
So does that draft thing sit all right with you, Clue? Then, Clue, Steve, does it sit all right with you? The timer simultaneously,
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah,
and the
I
and Clue is going to put that filter on just to make sure that we don't get, because it is, like I said, it is possible that you could get 3 Mickey Mantles in 3 different years. But if Clue puts the filter on that he suggested,
it'll be
then that
less
kind of
likely,
eliminates that.
and
It's
we'll
less likely.
have
And even if it comes up, we're always going to have at least 5 different options in a year anyway that we're looking at. I always had choices. I just
yes.
wish. Thank you, the Beatles. I think just having the date, I think, was the 29th. I think that was the original date for the draft, which would be next Saturday. But I'm not sure where Tuesday came from. But I know everyone was geared up for the 29th.
Big Clue getting antsy. That's where it came from.
Was that right? Okay. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So we'll
Big
blame
Clue
Big Clue
saying,
for
"Hey, let's
that.
get on with this."
Okay.
Could that be where it's coming from? I don't know. I know I'm fine with the draft. I had missed out when you all had a chance to talk about it. I think it's an actually ingenious idea of how not to, I guess, take up what 12, 15 hours of our time.
Yeah, we
But
need sure.
Beatles says you don't need me there.
We do.
Who's going to draft your team, Beatles?
We need you there, Beatles. Eh? It's like
What are you
having the
talking
Beatles
about?
without John. It's like having the Beatles without Ringo. Come
Oh
on.
my gosh.
Stones
You don't
without
need
Jagger.
me there.
The
Well,
Stones without
what's
Jagger. The Kinks without Ray Davis. The Pirates without Barry Bonds. The Pirates without Horace Wagner.
oh,
Come on,
it's
Beatles.
that's crazy, that kind of talk. I mean, what do you mean? Um,
You need
have
to be
fun.
there,
You don't
Beatles.
need me.
We need you. The Supremes without Diana Ross. The Big Red Machine without
Look
Pete
at that.
Rose.
You always know if you got to tear the competition down to make you feel better, that you don't really believe in that product that well. It doesn't have to be a Beatles
Stones.
versus Stones.
I love the Stones.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I also think West Virginia without MV. Look at that. Oh my gosh.
Exactly. So you're there. That's it.
I think the other thing that's interesting too is,
Hey, Josh Gibson made the All Stars, Steve. I didn't see that.
oh yeah, he was the number one catcher. Yeah, he was the All-Star
Yeah.
winning catcher. That I mean, I think when we look at this, we're not really surprised. Well, maybe we are. Babe Herman, which is underrated for the line he had. Glasscock is a surprise, and Alan Trammell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I'm loving Jack Glasscock being in there big time. The manager of the year was Big Clue. Who knew? Wow. I
Oh,
didn't
we're
see
gonna
that
have to
until just
change
now.
that.
We're gonna have to edit that one out.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the authority to edit that or revoke it based on conduct unbecoming. Or what is the clause that's in the Constitution?
West
Conduct
Virginia without
unbecoming.
MV. No, this is great, Steve, and I'm glad you like the draft idea. It's just a continuation of the idea we had, and it's just evolution, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to be having some fun this week. Maybe I'll come on. I don't know what Beatles' plan is to agree, but I hadn't been able to kind of get on and hop on and just chat baseball or whatever. So this has been fun, and I am looking to the draft. Now, it'd be nice if we had a good core of people, but I don't care how big the league is, but I hope it's bigger than 3 teams or four
Yeah, big time.
teams for sure. But yeah, I think it's a good way to make the draft entertaining and not feel like it's got to be multiple nights and people would have to attend 3 hours this night, 6 hours another night.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I think we can have more of the fun when we're on there bantering about what we've picked versus waiting
Yeah.
for picks.
That's good. It's good. It's good. It's just a date to clarify. That's all. 29th is what I've heard, but if it's changed, great. I'll go with any night. I just don't want to miss it.
I saw
don't
an
miss it.
official announcement. It was endorsed by Big Clue that it was set for Tuesday, the 24th, if
Cool.
that's right. So
Tuesday,
I don't know.
24th it is. That's perfect. I'll be there. I'll just reorder my schedule in the week. Cool.
So, any tips that you can share here? I'm stepping out of range for a moment, MV. So if you can carry the show here, I'm going to step
Yeah.
over and get my dog some food. If you can give us some of your strategy that you might, if you're willing to share with what you've done to prepare for the draft.
Well, I'm preaching to the converted. I think everyone's done their research. I mean, I play with myself. Well, I play with.
Well, hey, we don't need it to get personal or anything.
I, I play solitaire. Is what I'm trying to say. Every night, I don't think this is any tips to anyone. I play solitaire. Yeah, to clean that up. But again, there's nothing that these guys are not done and don't know their own history. I just call out years in my head. I might even get that granular where I might just sit down with a notepad and actually just say, is that Ken on here? I might just sit down with my notepad and just write down years and trying to see how much I do know. I know the 1980s fairly well. I don't know the 60s as well as that, apart from the usual suspects. In my league, what I have found, and I don't mind sharing this, is because everyone kind of knows it, the 19th century pitchers are hit machines, whereas the 19th century hitters do perform pretty well. And I had a great time with Jack Glasscock, who I'd never heard of before. Bill Darling I had heard of before, and they performed. Which, why wouldn't they? In any era they're converted to, they should still do well. Just looking at that screen, there are always hidden gems, aren't there? There's no real reason why anyone would
and then each
better than the
replay
other.
has enough uniqueness with this league. I think we've seen these leaderboards, and I know you've run your own sims. There's been familiar people like Suzuki's always really up there, Babe Herman, but I've seen these. I've never seen Ted Williams this high till now.
Which Taylor is that, by the way, for ERA for Ken's team, Ocean City Clams or whatever it's called? It says OCS under the ERA column. Taylor, which Taylor is that?
Jack Taylor, 1902. Jack Taylor. I think he was a Cub.
So that's interesting because he's a dead ball pitcher. What's his real stats? Is he a hit machine? Yeah, he's not that.
Hey, look at his ERA plus. It was 209. That's enormous. So it shows that his 1902 season is compared to his averages in the university put it up into. That's a monster year.
There are one or two Jack Taylors from the same era, right? Okay. I think the 20s and the 30s are where I'm finding players that, I'm like, wow, where's this guy come from?
Yeah, that's
my knowledge is so
one,
weak. So the tips for me, I just read and read as much as I can.
Babe Adams,
which is no different than anyone.
Top 10 pitcher in ERA here in the replay. A 1919 version of Babe Adams. He performed well.
Because Tiant performs well. Normally, again, depending on the year, but he does perform pretty well. Louis Tiant, I've noticed.
There he is. Boy, look at that whip, 0.872 from that season in '68. Of course, the year of the pitcher, right?
So I've just learned about Jack Taylor. I'll be listening up for him.
Look at this. MV's like, hey, that's a pretty sly move. Hey, Steve, can you, what's that Taylor there? Let me make a note. And folks, this is a live in the moment tips by MV on drafting right here.
The thing I did learn, though, which I didn't understand because of, again, not growing up with the sport, is whip. I think that's the thing that I've learned the most.
To me,
whip makes such a difference.
ERA, I think ERA plus is nice because it's the context of where they come from and park and era and all that good stuff. To me, whip, because ERA, the game will give them and assign a rating based on people that should have allowed more runs than they did, but it's trying to give them a factor of being more clutch. But whip to me is the best. I mean, if you can keep people, the less chances you get people of getting on base as a pitcher, the better. Now, if you couple low whip and high strikeout, like on my team with the Koufaxes and Gibson, that's like a double win. Yeah.
That's what I had with Randy Johnson. Interesting. There's a question for you. So there's an element of options on the management preferences for you to then push your aggressive pitching. So to me, that means you're going for the strikeout and pitching, inside the plate, as opposed to on the outside of the plate. But then you're going to strike out more, but you're also going to give it more home runs, aren't you? Is that right? By pitching aggressively. I haven't done anything with mine other than you
And
see I
here it
have a
is
lot
right
of
here.
strikeout pitches.
And this is a great point. Are you going to be more apt to just go after pitchers? So if you got high strikeout, you might want to bump this up to often. And if you don't have that kind of strikeout power, you might want to choose to go down. But that's a good point because I don't think I've ever come in here to tweak these to this level or even looked at how often I want to pitch around um,
Yeah.
and do that. And the same thing about how many times do we want to throw over? Are you the person that just wants to limit steals, or again,
Yeah.
we're back to how do I have a pitching staff that was a strikeout staff? What if I would have set that to more aggressive? Could I have gotten 5% more strikeouts out of them
Yeah, I
at
mean,
the
I was
risk
happy
of
with the
maybe giving up a
strikeouts.
home run?
I mean, my strikeouts are Ks per nine on that screen. I can just see behind that little screen there. It's very high. Ryan Johnson's 9.4. Vida Blue 7. But I like strikeout pitches. I just think they're more exciting.
Yeah, low whip and strikeout, wonderful. Now, where you get into trouble is like a Ryan, where he gives up a lot of walks, right? So his whip isn't going to be as low as some of these. So here's
Yeah.
your replay stats. So yeah, if we look at Ks per nine, yeah, this is good.
Beatles has got a good point there. Yeah, so this is, I mean, look at that. The Degrominators, good. Rube Waddell, although Waddell didn't have a great season,
Yes.
I think when you get to the point where Waddell backfired on me a bit, to be fair, but Fernando, for sort of like spot pitching, was decent, although he had a
Let's look at his real
win-loss.
life, what we'd expect, right? He's a 140 ERA plus, so he's good that year. But I think he did all right
Yeah,
for you. I mean, the
I think
the
so. I
the
think
league
so.
averages here are interesting. Let me take a look at my team just because I want to.
Beatles is saying, yeah,
And look at here, I've got.
focusing on limiting steals in this league could backfire. That's Beatles.
So see, I've got pitchers here that are averaging 8 strikeouts per nine. But yeah, what if I went and tweaked that up to be more aggressive on the pitcher, right? You got to think I'm going to give up some more home runs, but I'm going to get more strikeouts.
You had a good bullpen, actually, I think, yours.
Yeah, this guy Hendricks. If you look at his real numbers that year, look at his real numbers. He had a .732 WHIP, and in my replay, at a .702. That's incredible.
That is awesome. Yeah, Big Clue, I agree with you completely. Big Clue says, I just can't wait for Steve to not land 3 or 4 of the greatest pitching
Well,
seasons in history.
I had
That was
look.
amazing.
I have to admit, I got that benefit, but that helped make up for all those seasons I didn't want, and some bad picks I made, like picking players that I never used, like Mike Ryan and Jim Turner. At the time, I
Yeah, they're
thought
never
these would
going
be
to
some
hit.
hidden gems, and then when I got those years, it turned out those were wasted picks. So
That was just insane. Koufax, literally back to, and Willie Mays as well.
yeah.
And
Well,
Walter Johnson never got taken.
no, Walter Johnson never got taken at all.
He's the anchor of my original Red Bolt team. Yeah. That is
Oh,
true.
Beatles is already coming up with Steve rules. I've got disqualification parameters being put on me already.
Oh, I had a
No,
bad.
big.
I had.
I
I had some
remember.
bad ones as well.
I remember Big Clue getting a lot of great seasons. I remember all of us being envious of Big Clue. At least that's my memory.
No, I had a bad one. I had 19th century all over mine. I wasted pictures of Cy Young, which I would never do again, but I've learned something. And Fred Goldsmith, the inventor, allegedly, of the curveball.
Oh, Big Clue. You forgot the number one pitcher in history was on the roster. It was on MV's roster, but he bent Cy Young. Is that the number one pitcher
I don't think
you're
so.
referring to, or am I just trying to get Beatles irritated?
I'm really
Mookie
looking forward
Betts.
to Mookie Betts was good, wasn't he? No?
Let's
Did he
take a look
play
at
well?
Mookie Betts. What do we got? Here's Mudville. Where's he's a right fielder.
It's Mudville actual place that exists in real life.
Oh
Mudville.
gosh. In real life he He got 562 at bats and batted right below the Mendoza line, 199.
Why did he bat so badly, though? Looking at the stats, what's his lefty-righty splits in real life?
Okay, he batted 201 versus lefties, and in this game he went less than 100.
Well,
He
there's the
was almost
problem.
100 points worse against each.
Wow. Yeah, I heard of Candy Cummings, but not in baseball.
This guy's horrible.
Oh, here we go. Let's have a look here.
And his ERA plus, or his OPS plus, I should say.
To me, Mookie Betts would be a platoon candidate, would he not? Because in real life, he's not good against lefties, according to what I'm seeing on screen.
Correct.
I'd platoon him. Was he platooned in this game? No, I don't think so.
No.
I think he batted.
And he's a righty. He's a righty that really bats great against righties, so it's a not logical platoon. Kind of like your Valenzuela.
Exactly like Valenzuela. Yeah, absolutely.
So MV,
there is a reason.
You just gave another tip. If you spend the time MV to research each player and their platoon benefits, that's another level of detail you can get into to tweak a roster.
There you go.
Wow.
You're living your learn, Steve.
Oh, Mad Dog didn't get to play at all here.
So he's a platoon candidate. Let's have a look at Bill Madlock. Didn't play. Wow.
How about Honus Wagner? What went on with this guy?
Oh, he wasn't in the depth chart, remember?
He's a half part-time player that batted 206.
He just wasn't used enough. So if you ran this again with Honus Wagner out in the lineup, Beatles' record would probably go up by another 20 wins, possibly, with Mookie Betts playing in the right position. He'd still only have a record of about 70 and 90, but it would be much better. And if you did the other adjustments on the roster, Beatles probably could because that's got a good team.
Yeah.
A really good team.
I might play around with some more of that here later, but it's always fun stuff. So
cool.
Well, this has been fun. I'm going to run and get ready for. I've got my grandsons coming over, and we'll probably be down there enjoying the PlayStation 5.
Good stuff.
You know what I did get on the PlayStation 5 that I messed with a couple weeks ago that I really enjoy is the EA Sports Golf.
I haven't tried that yet. I like golf. Yes. Action PC golf would be great because I played it once before and that's awesome. So I might have a look at that.
Action golf I was thinking about today because, I have not. The other thing I was thinking about is this weekend I might entertain myself and try to emulate this league, the draft style with basketball. Because this would be really fun for, let's pick somewhere in the mid 50s up to the current day and fire a year and go grab a player, right? The same approach with a basketball league might be fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think Beatles said earlier, another project for you down the line amongst projects that you've got piled up behind you, Steve.
Utah Mike did. Yeah. Utah Mike said he did that one with a friend with the hockey.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I love action for that sort of thing.
Anyway, this has been fun.
Do a 5-year slice on MLB The Show. I said, we'll never see Steve again.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, God.
Right. Thank you, Steve, for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, I'm gonna run, but this has been fun. So hey, maybe MV will come on tonight. I say tonight. I don't know what it is over there. What time is it there right
now? For me, it's 12:12, but I'm off tomorrow. I've got one little session with someone at 11 o'clock in the morning till 12. But apart from that, I'm off all day.
Well, I should know.
So I'll sleep a bit later.
I don't know why I asked you that. I'm in the Mountain Time. I know West Virginia's 2 hours ahead. I should have known that.
Well, I'll leave you to tonight. I'm going to do a bit of research on my own with Candy Cummings and try and work out what this curveball controversy is with Fred Goldsmith and do a bit of that and then do a bit of my own solitaire. That's it.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, fellow geeks. Yeah. And if you haven't, hop on over there to the I've set up the Discord, the Baseball Geeks Geek Squad or whatever, and we can start hashing it out. But I think Big Clue's announced Tuesday will be the draft, and I'll probably come on this weekend once or twice if I get like a wild hair and want to maybe share an idea or something I we just want to chat or maybe walk through a feature or talk a little bit more about this, I'll probably be around and have free time to do that. So
All
looking
righty. Well,
forward. So
I'll disappear now. It's been a
yeah,
pleasure, Steve. I'll catch you on the other side. Take
hate
it easy.
to hate to it end abruptly, but you know how I do things.